Good morning, and welcome to Tri Valley Nonprofit Alliance's January community program, AI for Nonprofits, Crafting Custom Solutions with Chat GPT. I always want to say Chat GDP, but it's Chat GPT. What does that stand for, Tim? Do you know?
Yeah, it's generative. Uh, it's like pre-trained transformer, I think. So it's just a very technical. Uh,
Okay, yeah, that's not going to help me remember it.
but
Okay,
yeah,
anyway, Chat GPT, not GDP. This is with Tim Jackson. We're glad you're all here. I'm extremely excited to share this program with you today. I met with Tim a couple of months ago, and he gave me a fairly quick demonstration in some of the ways AI can be used. And I've been able to use those tools quite a bit and learn more just from starting there. And I've used them for some fairly big projects, and it's been incredibly helpful. So I'm certain you will come away with the same experience. I'd like to start this program by thanking our community sponsor, Sandia National Labs. I'd also like to thank anyone who made a donation when they registered. These contributions help keep these programs free for everyone. I'm going to tell you, Tim has asked me to let you know that there aren't any stupid program or stupid questions or stupid programs, but stupid questions. So if you have any questions, drop them into chat. And if he uses an acronym that you don't know, say, what does that mean? And just drop them into chat. Because for some of us, this is very new, and for others, you might be more seasoned. But if you're new at this, or if you're old at this, just feel free to drop them into chat. He will be answering questions along the way, and then we will also open it up for Q&A toward the end of the program. As I mentioned right up front, slides will be sent out following the meeting, so you don't need to worry about screenshotting them or anything like that. And this is being recorded. So I'm excited to introduce Tim Jackson. He brings over 20 years of nonprofit leadership experience, including two of those positions with the United Way information organizations, where he was the CEO. He understands the knowledge that nonprofits face, our limited resources, administrative demands, and the need for sustainable growth. So, from that, he launched Tailwynd to provide consulting paired with innovative AI driven solutions. His goal is to help nonprofits be early adapters in leveraging AI to automate tedious tasks and free up precious time to achieve greater community impact. So I'm excited to have Tim here, and I'm going to turn it over to him so we can get this meeting started.
great. Thank you so much, Kathy. It's nice to meet you all virtually. Thanks for taking some time with me this morning. We're going to have quite a bit of information that we're going to go over, but I really hope that you guys find it to be useful. I know that there's probably a range. We'll kind of get a sense of what the range of skill sets are, but I do encourage questions throughout. So I'm going to just jump into my slide deck here. Okay. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just my mug there. What we're going to cover today. So I'm going to do a quick overview of prompting best practices. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I think probably many of you have already heard and seen these. You don't have to know them all, but these are things that you want to start to pick up and do more of. You're going to get better results with them. But this is kind of more of an intermediate level um, webinar, but I am going to work to bring those along that are new to it. Even though some things may seem like, well, I've never seen that before, I don't know how to do it. Um, if you get in and start to play with it, you might be surprised at how easy it is to navigate. So we're going to go through a number of different custom GPTs. I'm going to show a number of use cases, and then we're going to dive in. This is a show, not tell webinar where I'm going to be doing a lot of actually working inside of it and showing it to you. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. So one quote I wanted to start out with, Ethan Mollick wrote the book Co-Intelligence on AI, and he's in the book stated that there's no definitive guide on how to use AI in your organization. We're all experimenting. AI is unlike any software we're familiar with, right? It doesn't have a guidebook. It has infinite different potential uses. And the only way that we really can adopt it is by experimenting with it and testing it out and using it. And that way we get better. And why do we use it? For good, right? We use AI for good to try and make tedious tasks more manageable, allowing us to focus most on our mission, on the people that we serve. And that's why AI can be really something worth taking seriously, is if it helps us to do more good. I want to just take a quick poll and just get a sense in the chat. If you could just respond in the chat, it's not a Zoom poll. But these are two questions. Do you have a ChatGPT Plus account? I'm just curious because many of the features I'm going to share today, you can only build in a paid account. You can access them and use them if somebody else has built them if you have the free account. The paid account costs, I think it's $20 or $25 a month, but it definitely has more robust capabilities. And then if you have the paid account, have you started to play with it? Have you done any testing out or maybe even advanced GPTs? Just be curious um, if people are using it. Okay, so I see some no's and no's and some yeses and yeses and no's and yeses. So there's a wide breadth of knowledge and experience with the group, and so I'm going to make sure and try and bring the no's along. But also there's definitely going to be content that's going to help support the yeses and yeses. So if you're a no and a no, don't be discouraged. It is a lot of information, but it's really much of it is quite intuitive. And so, I mean, if you don't have a Chat GPT account at all, that's something quite easy to set up. You could just, after this webinar, set it up and start playing around. There's also a lot of different AI tools, but this is the one, as I've been working to support nonprofits, that I've found the most utility in, which is why I'm sharing with you some of its features and some of its more advanced features. So, what are some domains where AI can support us? Like I said, there's kind of infinite possibilities, um, but here's three domains. This is my busiest slide. I know there's a lot of information. We'll revisit this information. It's just to kind of tease you in terms of like, prime you is a better word, in terms of some of the things it can be used for. Bids or proposal analysis, handbook retrieval of information, creating questions for interviews, helping to screen candidates. You got to be careful with that one, but you can use it. Retrieving policy information quickly and easily. In communications, it can help you build success stories, can help you engage, whether it's through social media, newsletters, blogs, press releases. It can help you develop a marketing plan. It's a great editor. It can edit a lot of things for you and help you have a consistent voice. In terms of fundraising, it can help you write a letter of inquiry, lots of different letters and correspondences. If you train it, it can do it in your voice. And that makes it yours because what we want is a tool that creates content that we would create anyway. It just helps us create it faster. It's not like large language models. I'm going to say that once, LLMs, large language models, which is the big information set that AI uses that can hallucinate when you start to tell it to use your content. So that's what we'll be doing. Grant writing, grant reporting, engaging donors, helping you to engage donors, and then donor analysis, like data, for example. I do have a more comprehensive list, although this is a long list on my website. I'm happy to share that out. But like I said, I'm priming you. We will come back to that. So kind of in chunks throughout. So what are some best practices related to prompting? So prompting is engaging with the AI. People have lots of different names that they call it, but I guess I'm just going to refer to it as AI because it's not a sentient being. But there are best practices, certainly. And it's really, if you want it to create something of value to you, you have to coach it, teach it, train it. It's your assistant. And so if you tell it who it is by assigning a persona, give it guardrails so it knows what data, what information to use. You give examples of what you'd like to see. You don't ask it to do too many things at once, so it actually knows what you're asking and you can get the answer right. And you can ask it for help if you're not quite sure because it's pretty good at helping you down to the next step if you get stuck. And then you refine and iterate. I mean, you can create something the first time and have it be something you would use over and over again or that was valuable. But as you play with it and get more familiar with the features, you can go back to things that you've created. This is not in the standard account so much where you're just engaging with the large language model, but more where you create custom spaces where you work. And then you can refine it and iterate it. So in terms of using personas, you see the picture there. There's lots and lots of different roles, and we certainly might want somebody that's an expert grant writer or communications expert or an HR professional to help us with a task that's associated with that, right? We give it the persona, then it knows what information to use to focus on supporting you because that's the persona it takes on. And you have to tell it what your goal is, right? So you have to be explicit in the way you communicate with AI to get the best results. I think there's a little bit of duplicity on this slide, but that's okay. In terms of providing guardrails, you want to define boundaries, right? You ask it to do something, it's going to give you 20 pages if you didn't say you wanted one page, or it could give a friendly tone when you wanted to have a combative tone. I haven't ever tried to have a combative tone. Not a good example. Um, Set expectations, format, structure, like what is it you want to come out of it? If you have a template, any sort of sample work, it helps it. It helps to train it so it knows what you want. You also need to talk about your audience as much as you know, right? Like we're trying to do this to engage with the stakeholder group. We have so many stakeholder groups as nonprofits, and it's really hard to refine content all the time for different audiences, but sometimes it needs to be done. AI can help with that. And then, like I said, break it into manageable tasks. Don't try and do too much at once. When I got started with this and I wanted to write grants, I thought I trained it on everything and I gave it a grant and I said, write me the grant. And it cannot do that. I mean, with some pretty sophisticated, you know, back end work, you can get close, but you can certainly build pieces of your grant very effectively, but in manageable steps. Again, I already said refine and iterate. You look at what it produces. Do you like it? If not, change it. Refine your prompts. Ask it for clarity. Ask it for more detail. Change the, tone, whatever it may be. And you can even interact with it in different ways. I probably won't get into that much today, but there's kind of, a few different ways that you can engage, even with resources that are out there. AI is everywhere, but ChatGPT is one of those large language models again, where you have basically access to all of the features and you can use it for so many different functions. Many, many, many of the AI tools that are available, they're being built into native software, right? So almost name the software package you have, they're doing AI integrations. But this is a great place if you're wanting to be able to create, be creative, try and find synergies and make tedious tasks more manageable across a broad scope. It's kind of like a jack of all trades AI. So why custom GPTs? Many of you indicated that you had at least a ChatGPT regular account, right? So again, that pulls on the large language model. That's the broad knowledge base. I mean, it's any piece of data that it can collect from anywhere, much of which is not owned, is actually private data that's owned, but it captures that data any way it possibly can, and then it mines that. And it is more prone to errors, and it takes more iterations to get what you want. It can give you it can really do, if you prompt it well, you can get some great stuff from it. But it has, it does have some flaws, and it can hallucinate. It tends to make up information if it doesn't know, and it sounds like it knows. So you have to be careful. But again, we're using AI as a tool. We shouldn't produce anything that we wouldn't produce if we didn't have AI. It just helps us do it faster and maybe better. And so we're going to know if it's making stuff up. In terms of custom GPTs, this is where, and this is what I'm going to show you, we embed our content. We have a lot of information, right? As nonprofits, we have so much knowledge about the programs that we have, the services we deliver, the needs of the community. And and this allows us to leverage that information and put it to work to help us with a lot of day-to-day functions, things that we're doing. So when you go into, I wish I had the visual because I know you guys are probably thinking like what it looks like when you log into ChatGPT and it's kind of just like a text box where you can start to query. But there is an explore button, and that's where you can look at things that people have built and you can build your own. And I think in one of these slides I'll have that. But these are three that I like that I've found that are built by others, right? There's lots of the people developing apps and making them available. They don't cost any money at this point. There's no marketplace, true marketplace. And so they're available for you to, work to identify and use. And these can help you with finding evidence-based information. That's number one, for your programs or helping you analyze a data set, right? And pull out, outlier information or trends, just by interacting with it via text or Canvas, which is a design um, tool helping to create social media content with that's visual. So those are a few. But what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on building custom GPTs. So this is where I said we're not focused on just prompting the regular ChatGPT functionality, which is the large language model, which just pulls from the metaverse all of the information. We're going to be training custom GPT, basically means we're going to be training AI to interact with our data sets instead of the information that it has access to. And so when we do this, a few things, and we'll kind of go through, you'll see these throughout the presentation, but we need to provide it with clear instructions um, in terms, and there is a specific instruction section where we tell it what its role is and what we want it to do. And then we also have a knowledge base where we can upload documents that it will access, and the instructions can be trained to appropriately access the knowledge base. I know it's getting a little more technical, but you'll see it. And that information can then be, I just need to show it to you. But that information can then be put to use in helping to craft some really great content. And then test and refine, right? You do that, and then you find that it's meeting a lot of your needs, but not all of them. And you go back and you tweak the instructions or you tweak the knowledge base. All right, we are on slide 18 of 37, which is pretty good since we still have quite a bit of time left, but I've actually got most of the content on the rest of these slides. So coming back to that, you remember I said that really busy slide, it had human resources, it had communications, and it had resource development. So here's five use cases, among others, in human resources. I'm only going to touch on the two blue ones. I wish that we could do all five of them because it can do a great job, with a little training, creating interview questions for you. That's just one other example. But we're going to just go ahead and jump in. Um, I pre-recorded the demonstrations that I'm going to be using just because I wanted to ensure there were no technical difficulties and that I knew how long it was going to take and it was just going to allow for a more seamless presentation. So it's going to allow me to man the chat while it's playing. It's also, please ask any questions, like really. And then also I can pause it at any point. So I might pause it a couple times and just jump in and say, hey, I think this is relevant. I didn't mention that. Or if there's a question that's relevant, I could pause it. But I'm going to go through a total of five of these. And this is the first one, which is bid proposal analysis GPT. This is the only one that I'm not using nonprofit content on because I didn't have it. So I'm using, well, you'll see. But the others are all clearly nonprofit content, but this still gives you a good sense of how it can be used. I also don't explain super explicitly how you navigate to the Create GPT, but basically on the left side, where you would normally chat, you hit Explore GPTs. It opens up the page that you see now. Oops, that you see now. Yeah, so you see over on the left here, there's those four dots. So if you're just in a normal um, ChatGPT function, if you're just chatting, you'd hit the very top one, ChatGPT, and you'd chat. If you hit Explore, it takes you to this page, and this is where you can search GPTs. You can see that you can search them by different categories. You can go up to the top right and click on My GPTs, which is all the ones that you've built that are saved, or you can create. So that's what we're going to do is we are going to create. And so this is, and each one of these I'm going to do, they're different use cases, but I'm going to do them a little bit different and they're going to show different pieces. I think with this one, I kind of started with a little bit more complex of a first prompt, but there'll be some other simple prompts. So just please bear with me. You're going to learn a lot. And so I'm going to hit play. Create a GPT to help us to review bids or proposals. We want to compare and contrast them, and it'd be really nice to have some help in the process. And I had my phone on because I'm using it to man the chat. So yeah, I mean, security and privacy is critical. I don't think I spoke to that. With the ChatGPT Plus account, you have to jump through some hoops to ensure your data is private. That's something that I'm happy to share with this group that I could give to Carol and Kathy to send out. If you have the team account, then it comes with all the protections, but you have to be really careful with it. We used it. I used it in Idaho. We got a $46 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education for community schools, and we used AI to tell us where it was weak and fill in the gaps. And I'm sure that helped us get those couple points in such a competitive grant. So it can do a lot, but it's right. Like, what is the integrity that's being used, right? When you use it, are you really creating something you would have otherwise created just faster, or is it really just what AI says and thinks and not you? So there's a lot to think about. So that would be something to explore for sure, better understanding the executive order. So um, I am going to share my screen again, and I think I need to request that I can do that just because I don't have the same permission that I did before.
You should be good
Okay.
now.
Yep, I'm good. Thank you, Carol. Okay. I appreciate everybody bearing with me. I don't think that's ever happened to me. So now I can say that it has. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, as long as it doesn't happen again. Oh, I just hit play from the start. Okay, play from current slide, and we're going to go down here. Okay, so this is a GPT that you're
You
going to
need
see.
to share the screen, Tim.
Oh, sorry, there's one other button I have to always push. Okay, so play from current slide. Okay, guys, so clicked on the explore button, clicked on, and now we're going to click on create, and we're going to create a GPT. It's not as hard as it may look. You're going to see a handful of examples, and we're going to start with this one. Create a GPT to help us to review bids or proposals. We want to compare and contrast them, and it'd be really nice to have some help in the process. So let's create a GPT. And I'm going to put in some instruction for it. Got quite a bit of instruction I'm going to do here all in one fell swoop. Design a GPT model tailored for contract analysis, capable of reviewing, comparing, and contrasting multiple bids or proposals. Examples include auditing firm proposals for a new auditor, contract or bids for services, provide a detailed analysis, and rank the proposals. Great. I'm going to say you are an expert contract analyst. Okay, so now it's creating in the GPT the instructions based on what I've given it. Could have done that in multiple prompts, but I did it all in one fell swoop. Proposal Insights is a good name. Sure. Okay, now it's going to create a profile picture. We're just going to accept. Looks good. That's fine. And now we're ready to, it's ready. It's got instructions built in, but we're going to give it a little bit more information. I, again, only want it to explicitly access the information, I upload the bids, nothing from its LLM. Thoroughly review them before responding. So include that in the instructions. Okay, let's check out the configurations if we want to edit it. You're an expert contract analysis skill in evaluating, comparing, and contrasting proposals, contracts, and bids. Your primary goal is to assist users in analyzing, identifying strengths and weaknesses. We don't need to ensure compliance with relevant standards and ranking them. Provide clear, structured feedback, summaries, be concise, offer clarification if anything's ambiguous, avoid jargon, only provide LLM. That's a little bit longer and more detailed than I really need it, but it hits everything. So when I say it's longer than I need, it hits everything, it's not perfect. I'm not trying to make it perfect in this example. You're still going to see how well it functions and what it can produce. If I spent another 5 minutes tweaking it and cleaning it up, I could get a little bit better product. But even when it's not refined, you can get some pretty useful information, which is what you're going to see. So we're not giving it a knowledge base. We're just going to go straight to creating it. This is a very simple one. And now that we've got it created, we can interact with it. So I don't have any, auditor bids or specific proposals to present that would be super relevant to you guys. So I'm going to just use something that I've got readily available, which is I'm getting a new roof on my house. Sorry, guys, that's all I had. So you get to see what my bids are for my house. Probably less than it would cost in California. And I just had 3 bids done. And oh yeah, I'm going to show you what one of those bids looks like really quick. So this is the bid, it's 5 pages long. It goes into detail on what's involved in putting on a new roof and what the warranty information is and some extras and miscellaneous, and then lots of legalese, terms and conditions about how they work. So that's what kind of the bids entail. And we're just going to go ahead and upload all 3 of these bids. Give it a second to upload and say, please analyze these bids, analyze these bids for me. Very little prompting because it's got its instructions, which I can use for any number of different uses. And it's telling me High North, has cost of 16.5. Work. Again, when I say any number of different uses, you recognize that when I put in the instructions, I said this could be used for looking at bids. We put out a RFP for a new auditor, right? And we get those bids in. We're still going to review the audit proposals, but this can give us a really quick analysis to start to think through what's in those. Or if we're having some contractors, do some work in your facilities. I mean, there's lots of different use cases. You use the same thing that we built for all of them. I just happened to, in this case, upload 3 roofing bids. But it's not designed for roofing bids. It's designed for analyzing multiple bids or proposals. Good warranty. They include cleanup. MW is 18.5, but there's optional additional costs. No upfront payment. Okay, they both sound pretty good, but I like the cheaper one. Kanga it charges extra for the second layer. You pay at the end. Have to act quickly. Here's a nice little side-by-side comparison so I can see the cost. There's no information here. Comprehensive, comprehensive, limited. So I think I'm going to eliminate Kanga probably, but let's see what it says as far as recommendations. Do I have further assistance that I require? I'm going to just tell it what's most important to me. I do want them to be professional. I do care about the price. And I do I want a good warranty. So just give me a rank order, but modifying it based on that. Rank order, High North Roofing is coming in first again. Strong professionalism, exceptional warranties, best price, making it a top choice. Second best, but higher price and less competitive wind warranties. So it doesn't have as good a warranty and it costs more, and you have to pay for extras. Kanga, comparable, lack of detail on warranties. I definitely said I want a warranty. I don't want to pay 20,000. So looks like I'm going to go with High North Roofing. But again, I would review the contracts, but they're just long, and this gives me just a very simple, easy way to start to assess them. And it could have a lot of different use cases. So a good example. I'm sorry that you guys had to learn so much about my roof. None of the others are on. They're all nonprofit related. We're going to jump into another one, which is employee handbook retrieval. Lots of employee handbooks are 40 or 50 pages. The one I'm going to use in the example is 43 pages. We can put them online so they're not print, try and make them more accessible. But how many people read them? Maybe when they get hired, and how many people know what's in them. This is designed to make it easy to know what's in the handbook, and interact with it. And so this was one that I just kind of created for fun. I actually haven't used this with any client. I just thought it was a cool use. Okay, let's create a GPT to help employees navigate the employee handbook. It's 43 pages long, and we want to make it easy for them to query it and get support. So let's go to create and interact with the AI. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste some prompts to get it all set up. I want to create a custom GPT to help Agave employees quickly query our employee handbook. And Agave, I'm going to reference Agave Health Partners. It's a made-up organization. I mean, some of this content I have permission to use, but it's not associated with this made-up organization in New Mexico. And so, anyway, there's no private data that's being shared, but you're going to hear more about Agave Health Partners because it's kind of my sample organization that I'm using. Okay, let's name is fine. Uh, Create name. Give me a profile picture of a handbook. That's the next step. So we'll just kind of speed it up a little bit by telling it what we want. Great. Okay, now it says it's set up and ready to go, but we want a little bit more information put in there. So I want it to only use the handbook as its knowledge base and not draw on the LLM. And I want it to direct people to HR if there's not enough information. So let's include that in the instructions. Okay, so let's look at the instructions. It's designed to assist employees. It retrieves information, but only provides information explicitly included. It thoroughly reviews the handbook before responding, directs people to. Just really quick, the instructions, I've been interacting with AI to create the instructions, right? That's the create tab up above. But you can also just edit and put them in here directly. I just like the other route in most cases, but you can come in here and edit it. But this is where you come in and see how it's interpreting your prompts and actually building out the instructions for the way it's going to function. HR, no outside information, maintains professional yet approachable tone. We like that. Aligning with the culture of openness and support. Does not provide legal advice. Okay, good. Let's get rid of the conversation starters and let's go ahead and upload the handbook. I'm just going to show you the handbook read. And I get rid of those conversation starters, I think, in all of these. But if you want your GPT that you create, you know your end user and you know the likely questions they're going to ask, you can have those there, just making it easy for them to click on, just to kind of, again, prime them for uses. But in this case, I didn't do that. Really quick. so that you can see the handbook I'm uploading. It's 43 pages long and it has select policies, work rules, compensation, benefits, a lot of details, right? So that's what we're going to upload. So let's slide this back over and upload that file. And then we can create the GPT and start to interact with it. And I'm going to just do a few kind of common queries that we might anticipate. So it's basically ready to go, and I'm going to start to interact with it. But just one difference you'll see between this and the last one. The last one, we just put in instructions, and then we started to interact with it. You're here to be a contract analyst and to help us with bids and proposals. Thank you. I'm going to interact with you. And then I uploaded my bids and asked it to do the analysis. In this case, I'm on the back end giving it a document. Like I said in one of my slides, like the main things I was going to say about this is there's instructions, there's knowledge base, and then there's iteration. And so these are the main things. And the last one we didn't use the knowledge base, but when you use instructions paired by the knowledge base, this is where you're giving it more information that you want to have it act on. I guess in a way we did give it those bids, we gave it information to act on, but it was specific to our prompt, to our need. In this case, we know that this handbook is going to be useful for all of our prompts for this tool. So let's create the GPT so that we can send the link to our staff. They don't need a paid account to use the link, so they can interact with it as much as they'd like. Just need the link. And now we're going to view it and interact with it. Okay, so let's say I'm a new employee and I'm sick and I don't. Okay, so I am going to just skip from 3 minutes to, I'm going to check my notes. I think it's 5 minutes and 30 seconds because you don't need 3 examples in here. I think 2 is fine just to make sure we're okay on time since I had to sign off. And we'll just pick up here. That's great. So I didn't tell it I was moving on to a new prompt. So it's like still telling me about the illness. It's got those 2. So I'm going to say, now I have a new question. And so we're going to just move beyond those last 2 questions. And the question is, my uncle just passed away and I want to get bereavement leave because I need to attend his funeral. We were really close. Let's see what the handbook has to say about that. Okay, handbook says 3 days bereavement for immediate family members, spouse, child, parent, sibling. Oops, uncle's not included, so I have to take PTO. All right, I'm going to ask Steve for next Tuesday off. And again, this GPT wasn't set up to send emails to Steve. It was to look at the handbook. But when you're in there, it's an opportunity just to it can still function broader than the GPT. And so I guess that's one thing that you're seeing there is even though it's not instructed, it's easy for it to write this email to Steve. Let's just say, what process would I use to request PTO? I think I just email my boss, provide advance notice. Yeah, I want to ask Steve. All right. So let's have it draft an email for us to send to Steve. Okay. See how it looks. Hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to request PTO for next Tuesday to attend my uncle's funeral. This is important for my family. I really appreciate it. Please let me know if you need any more information. I'll ensure outstanding work is handled beforehand. Happy to discuss any arrangements. Okay, that sounds good. Let's copy and paste it or tweak it a little bit and it's ready to go. Those are just a few ways that you could interact with this. There's many others, but the point is it makes it so easy to navigate. And it's just a simple way of showing the capability, whether or not this is something you'd want to employ. And actually, I kind of like the one I skipped over. And the one I skipped over, an employee was having challenges with another employee that was being rude and unkind and demeaning and queried the GPT. And the GPT had stuff related to retaliation, stuff related to discrimination, and then also just things that were related to like standards of conduct, which is it was the lowest level, but it was still breaking the standards of conduct, and it made it very clear that that's what it was, and led her to decide to reach out to her supervisor to discuss what was happening, knowing that it wasn't okay. It wasn't like a legal issue, but it was against policy. So now
So,
we're,
Tim, in chat, there's a couple
oh
of
yeah, yeah,
questions,
yeah.
and one of them is like, especially if it's like a group system or a company system, how secure and private is the information?
Yeah, so that's something that I can send you after so you can actually see it. But I mean, you get more security like baked in if you're in a team account. Like anything from the team account up, like they OpenAI has all of the baked in security and they're very clear about how your data will and will not be used and provide those assurances and all of the legalese associated with it. If you have a Plus account, they don't provide that. You have to jump through hoops and request it, and it's
So, is the
multiple.
Plus account where you're paying like $20 a month?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the team account, I think it's maybe more like 30. I think they bump it up a little bit per user, and you have a minimum of two users. But then with the team account, there's more functionality because of the way that you can interact within the software.
So, with the team account, you still pay per person and you pay a little bit more, but you get more security.
Well, I think you can achieve the same security, but that's again me just doing a lot of research to determine it. But I've been confident with that assessment and have had contracts with organizations that are using the Plus account. But I think I feel more comfortable with the team account. Yeah, certainly. I wish that they would extend that to the Plus account, and I'd encourage
Okay.
the
And then,
team account if
um,
not a stretch.
okay, so there's another question in here. Have you used Gemini or Copilot, and do you recommend Chat AI over that?
I haven't used Gemini much. I went to a AI conference in Seattle hosted by Microsoft, and it was kind of funny. Like the first thing that they did was just like disparage ChatGPT and talk about how great Copilot was. Um, because they only own like 49% or 45% of OpenAI, Microsoft. And so they were really pushing their product. But I have used Copilot and I think it has some incredible use cases, but that are different from the ones that I'm sharing now. Like in terms of its ability to do some of these things, I mean, all of my staff, when we had both accounts, like did not want to use Copilot to write emails. It was clunky and a pain. If you had a significant technical email or one that you wanted to word just right, that you weren't going to just pop off, you put it in ChatGPT. You didn't use Copilot's native functionality. Now that's going to continue to improve. They certainly are working to refine it as much as possible. But I think what one of and other people may have more knowledge than I do on this. I'm planning to, get an account again so I can stay up to speed on that. So if anybody else wants to chime in, but what it's really good at is you're working within your ecosystem, and so it has access to your information. And so for helping to manage your calendar or manage meeting notes or manage action items, those are all things that are great. And I think there'll be more and more integrations into Excel and Word. Um, and PowerPoint and email. I was just woefully disappointed in all of those functions when I was using it 6 months ago. So when I
Could
say
I
all the
ask you?
functions, I don't mean the calendaring and the meeting minutes. I think it can be good at that. But like in terms of Microsoft Office, I wasn't impressed.
Could I ask you to jump a little bit to the main one, like just what how to ask a basic question when you're talking about the calendars, how to do calendars or minutes? Is there something like a simple example that you could just show us, or will that create?
No, no, I can do that. Yeah, I mean, I know that there are some more simple, people that are at a less that are just more new to it, right? They haven't as much
Hmm.
exposure. I guess that's probably the best way of doing it. So, yeah, I mean, I can just I can end this. I mean, I do have a few other use cases There's one that's how to build success stories. There's one to how to build letter of inquiries, and then there's a grant writing one. The grant writing one's pretty impressive, but it's more technical. I'll skip the letter of inquiry one. That just buys us maybe 10 minutes. So I'm gonna stop sharing this and I'm gonna just open up a new chat and, and we'll just um, see what we can do. Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna share my screen again. Oops, and show. Oh, okay, so we're just gonna interact with it, and um, and so this is we're now. So I'm not in the examples. I'm not in the recordings. This is where I said you go to explore, and it gives you this, and that's where you can have your GPTs. If I click on that, I've got like 100 of them, or you can create, or you can look at different ones. But if you just go to ChatGPT, that's where you chat, right? So, I mean, there is some cool new functionality in this as well that you might like to see. So is there anything anybody would like to try out? And I could just try and do a good quality prompt. Um,
How about if one of the things I found was very cool about it was like if you use that it could review our website. And so just as like a sample, could we write to a individual donor reviewing the information on our website for a solicitation letter?
Yeah, we could. And I mean, that is one of the custom GPTs I have that I built that's in my deck is showing how to do the letters, but it's built to do letter after letter after letter after letter because it's trained on it instead of each individual letter coming in and coaching it. So, I mean, that's a good way to kind of juxtapose the two different ones if we wanted to look at them. And so it's like, if you're doing this, it's like, for it to write the letter well, it needs to know something about Tri-Valley nonprofit. What's the best way of doing that? It can't scrub web pages, but it can gather some information. I think it basically takes information from the website, And so if I want to just put Tri-Valley nonprofit, um, hope that's
That's
like,
yeah, that's going to the event registration. Just tvnpa.org.
okay, tvnpa.org.
PA. Yeah.
There it is. Okay, so I can take that information and paste it here and say, you are an expert grant writer and, or sorry, not grant writer, development. Let's say development director, manager, chief development officer, right? Development officer. And I need help writing a letter. What kind of letter did you say? A letter of
Letter of solicitation
solicitation to
to a
a
donor,
foundation, corporation, individual,
just to an individual donor.
to individual donor. Please reference our website. I get so sloppy with spelling, which is not great. Please reference our website, TVNPA, to be able to reference
Ask for $10,000.
our information. Ask for 10K. Yeah, I want to juxtapose this, if you're all right, maybe with another one.
Yeah.
So, empowering dear donor, I hope this message finds you well. As a valued member of our community, you understand the vital role of nonprofits. We started in 2014, empowering nonprofits, flagship initiative. It's a little bit long, I think, but it's got some really good information in it. Um, I wouldn't put Julia's information way up there. You want to kind of put the name down there, but it's something that you could work with, right? It's a
Hmm.
it's a draft, and one of the new features in ChatGPT is called Canvas, and you can let's see, you can just switch to Canvas right here. Um, Put in Canvas, and it'll actually take that and make it like in a Google Doc format where you can actually interact with it. So
Oh,
instead of just putting a prompt to have the whole thing be rewritten, you can come in here and you can interact with it. And you have to wait for it to be done loading before you can interact with it, but it's almost done loading. And then it's going to give me these tools over here. So you can add emojis. I don't know why you'd want to do that. When you're almost done, add a final polish. You can change the reading level. You can adjust the length. You can suggest edits. So let's adjust the length because I think it is a little too long. What do you think? Would you
sure.
agree? Let's just
Yeah,
make it a little shorter. Oh, did I have to hit shorter? I have to like go like that. So there's like no prompting. It's just trying to like make some of the key things that you might want to do like really easy to do. Let's see how long it is. So, and that might be a little bit too short. It's not a full
hmm,
letter. Um, so you kind of get used to what that scale represents. But it's a start. Yeah, it's a start. I mean, it can get you started. And the more refined your prompt is, the better the results, right? And so we didn't really say out of all the work TVNPA focuses on or does, we want you to focus on this. We also didn't say this is a little bit of information about the donor and what his interests or her interests are or how we're going to connect. And so the more information you can give them, the better result you're going to get. And you can do that just by getting better at prompting. It's like we could have said something specifically about this donor and their interest, and it would have integrated that. We could have said something specific about what we wanted it to focus on about TNVPA's service offerings, and it would have focused on that. So now, if I was to juxtapose that with going back to and I just have to make sure I go to the right one. Um, let's see. Am I not sharing? I was sharing all of that, right?
you did. Yes.
Okay.
You're not sharing at this moment,
Okay.
but yes.
So we will share desktop, share, play from current slide. So this success story one is really cool. I probably won't go over it, but the way I designed it is you can interview, and then we go on to the one that we were just talking about. So that's why I'm just kind of skipping past this, but it's designed for a communications manager to interview a staff person about a success story and then put the transcription into this custom GPT that's trained on best practices for success stories, that knows the arc of a story, that knows the emotional piece and hitting the impact, um, and it's trained on data that has significant information about the program. Um, and I give some example success stories, and it just cranks out. Literally, you put in a transcript, and it's been giving me like pretty much like print ready success stories, which people don't do success stories. There's so much work. Nobody has to write it down. It's a transcription. And the one I do, I have somebody in English interviewing somebody in Spanish that understands English, but their preferred language is Spanish. And it just does it seamlessly with the Spanish. So that one's fun. And I can share these with you guys later too. I'll probably put them on my website. Um, but going back to the letter of inquiry, so um, some resource development use cases, grant writing, grant reporting, letter of inquiry, I put interest, but I've got grant writing and letter of inquiry as ones that I can show you. So this is, Kathy, basically the one that you just asked,
Development,
but it's
and
basically, I'm just going to kind of like fast forward to like, so I'm training it, I'm telling it what to do, I'm giving it a profile picture. It makes you do that every time, unless you tell it not to. It wants a name and a profile picture. I'm going to kind of fast forward to where it has its, yeah, so this is, we just skip 4 minutes. This is
weird.
right here, the instructions. So now, anytime you interact with this, if you're asking a letter for an individual donor, a corporate sponsor, or a family foundation, you can use this tool because it's trained. And so you don't have to do a lot of prompting. You just say, hey, this is who we're targeting. This is why. Focus on this. And it knows a lot of
Warm and
information.
professional nonprofit letters of interest, professional and skilled writer, skilled in crafting, compelling letters, persuasive and personalized, warm, professional, mission driven, alignment between the organization's mission and interests of the audience. So, any details we provide on the audience, it'll take into account. It's focusing on the counseling program, 300 to 500 words. It's going to conclude with Maria's information. I think we're ready. And, we could give us a few specific,
Okay, so now
to
I'm gonna,
develop. This information came from former letters for
yeah,
people
so
that,
so that's
so I'm
just
going to share former
this is
grants.
I am
So
gonna
I'm going to
show
share
this.
information.
So Agave made up, right? It's not an organization, but I created a boilerplate that has comprehensive organizational information that you can upload as the knowledge base for so many different GPTs so that it knows you, right? We talked about putting in the website. This boilerplate, if I showed you what it is, it's 17 pages long. It goes over the program description, the program history, the target population that they serve, what is the need in the community, what's the evidence, the research base that supports it, what does our impact data say, who are our partners, what wraparound services do we provide, what are our goals, just lots and lots and lots of information that we often at times have stored in different grants that we've written. They're in our strategic plan, they're in our annual report, they're in different communications document. Centralizing it into a boilerplate, it takes time, but it's powerful information to put into the knowledge base to be able to query. And so that's what I'm referencing here that I upload in the knowledge base. And so this is why I'm really trying to make it smart, right? It's got all this information, in this case, on a bilingual counseling program for immigrants. Um, and it's got success stories in there. So I upload that and save it, and now I've got this thing built. So now, Kathy, we're dealing with Nonprofit Letter Pro, which knows so much information about your organization. We did have to curate it, but we can use this over and over and over again. And we had to train it, which didn't take very long. It could probably take some refining because I literally did it in like the few minutes of the video. Um, but now we get to see what it can do. And so I'm going to just go to the second example. Um, Not the first one, just because one example is going to be enough. Okay, we're going to go to this example. This is it, asking it to write a letter to an individual donor.
And new interaction. Now, that's not a little cryptic, but it should understand. Got it. What's your next request? All right. Write a letter to Jimmy Dearborn, a local developer that has a lot of capacity. He's currently supporting for the first time, a project for low to moderate income housing where some of our clients will likely reside. I want to invite him to a dinner we are hosting that will include a tour and where the new mayor will speak. So, you have to give some specificity, right? If you want it to be tailored. And so anything that you would be putting in that letter to try and make that clear connection, like how you're wanting to engage with them and what your current connections might be. It's going to strengthen the letter and just get you to a strong letter quicker. Again, we've got this, which I would put in the instructions to never say that. This is where you iterate, you edit, you refine, you just go right into the GPT, hit edit, tell it not to do that. It won't do that anymore. I wanted to express our gratitude for your commitment to developing low to moderate income housing. Your work is making a meaningful impact, and we're excited about the opportunities it provides for families. So that's great. We're just giving him kudos for the good work he's doing. I really like this letter so far. We'd be honored to have you as a guest at an upcoming dinner we are hosting. It will include a guided tour of our counseling program. It will also feature remarks from our newly elected mayor who will share their vision for building a stronger community. So it doesn't know if the mayor, the mayor is, let's say it's Genevieve. So then we'll share her vision. And I don't know, I could put her name in. You can edit this however you'd like. And then you can put the details in there. This event is a wonderful opportunity to connect with other community leaders, learn more about the holistic support we provide, and explore ways we can work together. So we're trying to get him further engaged. Please let me know if you're able to join. We'd be delighted to show you firsthand how your efforts in housing development align with our mission to strengthen and serve families in Albuquerque. It's a really great letter, so I think it's ready to send. I'm ready to put that on letterhead.
So not that the one we created a minute ago wasn't good and didn't have potential, and I did take more time and thought in terms of the way I was going to prompt this, but um, in the first shot, it did what I think is a really strong letter, but based on what information it pulled about the organization, tying it to his interests, and it has, things like the signature at the end. And so we're getting a little closer. I mean, I will always have information. There's so much stuff I want to share. And so, um, should I jump into the grant writing one and just give a snippet of it to end
Yeah, let's do that. That
on
sounds
level
like a good.
45? Okay. So this is the last one. The puzzle I picked because it's like, you have so many grants that we're writing to secure resources from, people that want to support us, but they have their own criteria. And it's often us taking the same information and parsing it out to meet character limits or to combine this and that. And it's tedious work, and it's reusing a lot of the same information. But it's just not, it's not a very clean system. And so how can we leverage AI to support us, and make it a little bit less cumbersome and still basically produce the same, right? Again, we talked earlier about ethics around this, and it's about producing what you would produce anyway. You have to always know what, like everything that you write. But I'm
Gonna
gonna
do be
skip
able
probably a bunch
to
of
have
it.
it
And
help.
I'm trying to think about what I want to. This one's like I made it a little bit more sophisticated. Let me see if I can show you. So this one also, it's gonna reference in its knowledge base. So I'm training it on the instructions, that go into that field that I can then review. It's called the Gavi Grant Writer. But in this one, because I've got a 17-page document on this like bilingual counseling program, like it'll do a pretty good job if I query it and say, give me stuff from that 17-page document. But I put tags in it so that if I'm like writing a needs assessment section, I can tag like focus on pulling data from that, focus on pulling data from this, and it'll like go right to the source. And it'll basically just use that content. It's like, I'll show you one. Well, there's one in here that I like. It's like, um, I kind of like all these. You tell it how many character limits, 450 characters. It counts in tokens, not characters, so you have to give it a range. It can't do exact. It literally can't. So you give it a range and just make it narrow so that it's right about where you want it. And it's just a few characters away every time, or a few words away. So the one I'm gonna do is, let's see, this one, right? Was it that one? No. No, I think it's the last one. Okay, yeah, it's this one. So you can see my prompt. Okay, now provide 190 to 200 word overview of evidence from three external sources that support the program, focusing exclusively on evidence on culturally relevant counseling. Do it in a narrative. Don't include full citations. Just name the source in parentheses. Also, pull information from external evidence. So, I know what's in the boilerplate. It's really great data. I mean, this is based on people I've worked with, but it's a totally, everything is scrubbed and then altered. But if I hit play and you see what it can produce, if you had 200 words to talk about the evidence base for your bilingual counseling
196.
program,
So let's see how it does.
this is
Firmly
it,
rooted
it does a great job.
in evidence. It talks about National Institute for Mental Health around culturally competent care, which addresses certain specific barriers which are critical. Similarly, the National Hispanic Family Center emphasizes the success of.
But something like this, putting in tags and putting in, taking the time to build that boilerplate of information, like that's a commitment. But it is something that makes the utility of that GPT so high, um, in terms of, I mean, basically what I was doing in this is writing lots of different sections of grants, right? A needs section, a program description section, different ways that grantors would ask for it. You don't write the grant all at once, but you can say, okay, I wrote these four sections. Like, can you make them flow really smoothly? You can do things like that. Um,
Hmm.
and you can actually, I mean, I have figured out how to even have it have a menu so that you can pick the program where you could actually have all of an organization's programs built into one GPT. So I'm gonna just be done. I'm not even in the slide deck. I am having fun hanging out with you guys. Um,
Gonna
Yeah,
do.
so can we go to Q&A? Like Susan
yeah,
has a
yeah,
question in here for like, is the free version of any value at all? And Susan, I'm going to tell you one of the ways that I used it even starting was just please if I sent out an email the previous year and I want to send out a similar one, I say, can you please refresh it for this year so it's not the same as this email I sent out last year, and it will do things like that. Um,
yeah. It has a ton of utility. I shouldn't disparage what it is. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. That same guy that wrote the book that I mentioned said like the AI you're using right now is the worst AI you've ever used. Like the free version is getting better and better. It's probably better than the paid version was 2 years ago. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. It's just if you're trying to push the limits of what it's capable of, then you move beyond some of that functionality because you can create further efficiencies and that just helps you get ahead. But in certain use cases, it's probably just as effective. Like you said, Kathy, like, I mean, if you want it to like edit something or review something and give you suggestions, it's incredible. If you want to take something that you've already done and then like retool it a little bit, you're rewriting a grant to the same grantor they fund you every year and you just want the language to change, really easy. Um, and even if you just have good prompts, right? Like you might have to do the same prompt, a little bit more detail, like because you're writing a grant or you're writing a letter and you have to just like finesse it a little bit more, but it can get you there pretty dang good the better your prompts are and as you get familiar with it. Um, so yeah, I think it could meet a lot of people's needs for sure.
at least for even getting started while you get accustomed to it. Like I was in a meeting, we had three sets of notes, and I put all the notes in there and said, "Could you please summarize this as a memo?" And it took all three sets of notes and did a great job. So things like that, it just streamlines stuff and can save an hour or two of time really easily.
Probably the biggest thing just to be wary of is like people have talked about hallucinations. Like it sounds like it knows what it's doing always. And so it can make something sound very realistic and true that's not true. And one of the places you'll find that is like if you're asking for like it to cite good information, like to give you citations. It'll just make up citations. The link you'll say, well, give me a link, cite it. The links will be broken but it sounds like it knows exactly what it's doing. And then you ask it what it did, and it has no idea. Um, and so that's not a good function for it. I mean, there are people that have customized GPTs in the GPT store where you can do research, or you just research articles and then you check every link before you actually put it into a letter, put it into a grant. You really have to do your due diligence if you're, um, if you're having it cite things that, that you want to make sure are reputable. If it's creating text, then you tell it what tone, who it is, you use those same guardrails, those same persona things. You can get some really great stuff out of it.
I also do this thing I call it, I write my crappy first draft a lot of the time. Like when I don't know how to write something, and I just call my
Yeah.
crappy, just get it out of my head. But I can drop that into chat and say, can you please professionalize this for me and add in, and it will do that as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's, I
It's
wonder,
like
is there
maybe
anyone
you get
else?
the 80, you get it to an 80% draft in that one, and maybe if you're customizing a GPT, you get to a 90 or 95%. Like you're still getting that draft incredibly fast. And if you just want a brainstorm partner, you're like, I want to figure out this HR thing. You're an HR expert. What do you think about? And then all of a sudden your mind's going to be flowing with ideas. It just helps to jumpstart you. Yeah, somebody else, please jump in.
Yeah, I'm curious if anyone else has used chat that they have something that they can share on that. No?
There's
Niall, have
a
you used it? Go ahead, Carol.
there's a question in the chat. Says in the example, custom GPT wrote an email, but that was from outside LLM. How to set a boundary? And I was wondering if that person could expand on that question a little bit more.
I think it's a good question. I could answer it just based on that too, if Sweeta doesn't want to jump in. Should I just take a stab at it, Carol? Um, I frequently try and set those boundaries because it wants to pull from its large language model. And so when you're trying to have it use your content, you have to be really explicit. And I found that just by telling it that it shouldn't do it, it almost never does it. But every once in a while it does. And I'm like, what's going on? So now I like double down on it and I say, do not pull anything from outside language model. Um, and then I say, exclusively use information from the uploaded ChatGPT. Um, and so when I get like really explicit, it's the same thing as like you put in the knowledge base something. It's like when I add like thoroughly review the knowledge base, it can do a better job. And there's actually, we've been just interacting with ChatGPT 4.0. There's better versions. There's the zero point 0.1, they're releasing another one. They have additional capabilities that do more processing of the information, and they don't spit out answers in a half a second. They like take 5 seconds and kind of process. So they're going to be better at that.
Yeah, Josh Jonas put in here too, as far as using it. I've used it to come up with event titles. We've certainly done that too, newsletter titles, etc. And playlists. That's a interesting use for it. I could see
It
that.
was Valerie Jonas, but that's okay.
Oh, Valerie, I just saw Jonas. I was Josh Jonas too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see you
Yeah, and
doing
I
that.
mean, in those like just practical uses, what I love is I have it on my phone because with the app you can do audio. And so I'll just it's like almost effortless, right? You just say what you're thinking and wait for a response to help you, with whatever you're trying to figure out. If it's just as if it's Microsoft says Copilot, if it's an assistant, if it's an intern, you can, you know, you, it has access to information that's going to help you with what you're trying to figure out a lot faster than Googling it.
You know what's kind of strange about it too? The more I use it, it's very friendly.
Mm.
Yeah, it's almost like personality strangely friendly. It's kind of interesting.
You know
It
why
does
that is,
its
Kathy? It's because you're friendly. It mimics the tone of who it interacts with to some degree, unless you're telling it what to do.
so when I'm saying please and thank you, it's taking that.
It does impact it. It does impact it. Yeah, which is really weird. I mean, like I said in that quote, like everybody's experimenting with it. The guy talked about that in the book that like people can go to dark places with it. Like it literally, depending on how you interact with it, will start to take on a certain persona on its own, if you're not telling it what it should be doing. which is weird.
Mm.
I haven't really
Yeah.
experienced that. It's mine's friendly too, but
So if I want to be like at it, will it be that back at me?
I haven't tried. You should try. Do you want me to open it up again?
That's okay. That's interesting though.
Yeah, it is
All
interesting.
all kind of frightening. Okay. Well,
It is.
um,
That's why we're here to use AI for good, right? We can't control all of the uses, but what we can control is, I mean, that's like where it hits me in the heart is nonprofits, everybody's working so hard. There's such great needs in our community. There's limited resources. We have to work smarter, not harder. If we can leverage this in a good way to take away tedious work that burns people out and that has you staring at a screen instead of with your clients, like if we can use it in that way, it adds value.
yeah, yeah, it's helping me tremendously. Um, and as like Carol said in there, Carol from Spectrum, outside of work, I use it all the time for restaurant recommendations. I was talking to someone yesterday who's planning a 10-day trip to Japan and asked for with 10 families with kids and asked for to plan a trip with a one event each day.
That's,
So
yeah, I was in San Antonio. This is a long time ago, and I wanted to go for a run from my hotel. And I said, I want to run 2.5 miles and I want to go somewhere cool. And it gave me two options. And I got to go see like this really cool bridge with bats under it and run along the river and go see another historical site. And it was the distance I wanted in nature from my hotel in 5 seconds. Like the concierge couldn't have done that.
right, yeah, that's great. And then Rihanna just threw in there that she uses it to update job descriptions, which
hmm
yeah,
Talk
I've
about
asked
tedious
it to do
work
that.
that nobody wants to do, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, unless anyone has any other questions, I think anyone have any other questions? All right. Well, I would like to take this time to thank Tim for spending time with us this morning and showing us the large scope that chat GTP, not GDP, can help us with. Really appreciate it. Again, he gave the resource as his website, and then we will also send out the slides and the video. So we really appreciate you sharing your expertise, Tim. And I would love to see nonprofits be at the forefront of, to be early adapters, in other
Right.
words, of chat. Um, and check out our website for upcoming programs. And thank you, everyone,
And
for attending.
if anybody's interested in learning more, I mean, this is what I'm doing for work now is trying to help nonprofits leverage AI. And so I'm happy to share these things with you. But if anybody's interested in learning more or working with me, I'd love to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you were showing me how you can save those documents and bring them up, and then how you can set up your computer or your chat to be able to have all those resources available. So that was really helpful, how to save documents and bring them up. All right. I think that's it then. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kathy.